Just got done with a brutal workout, and I know a lot of us are at home right now. It doesn't mean you can't stop training. The training always continues, and I don't just mean the physical training. That's the least of it. See, here's the thing. We all know coronavirus all over the world. Some people are going through a lot more struggles than others. Some of us are just stuck at home, not the end of the world. Other people losing jobs. It can be really dark, and I get that. But here's the thing. Nobody would have wanted coronavirus to happen. Nobody wished for this. Nobody would have wanted it. But it's here whether we like it or not. And the thing is, moments of greatest suffering can be our greatest teacher. Use this as a training ground because it is handed upon you. The whole thing around Fearvana, I mean, if you've been following me for a little bit, you know I'm always about seeking out suffering, seeking out a worthy struggle. This one is not one we sought out. It's handed to us. How we respond to it now is how we're going to respond to it when this thing is done. Because the thing is, we are going to get on the other side of this, one way or the other. I don't know what the world is going to look like. Maybe it looks very different, but we are going to get on the other side. And if you use this opportunity that's been handed to you as a training ground to suffer well, it will transform the way you not only respond to the current circumstance, but how you handle life when this is done. One of my favorite quotes among many is from Dostoevsky, who said, "My greatest dread is that I will not be worthy of my sufferings." As I said, some of us are not really going through crazy struggle. I certainly have nothing to complain about. Some of us are. But one way or the other, it's affecting our lives. It's affecting my life. It's affecting our lives, all of us, a little bit. So you get to decide, will you be worthy of this? In Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, he cites Dostoevsky's quote, and he talks about in a concentration camp, in the place of just hellish suffering that most of us could never even fathom. People who were tortured, cold, starving, miserable. They would give away their last piece of bread to somebody else who needed it more than them. The humanity in that, the compassion in that, the courage in that is unfathomable. It's a reflection of the highest of human spirits. And the thing with times of great adversity, I say this with war all the time, war brings out the very worst of humanity, people doing horrible things, atrocities, but it also brings out the very best. People jumping on grenades to save each other. People have a friends who ran into burning Humvees to save a fellow Marine. And the courage that requires, that kind of thing can only be brought about in times of great adversity. Because you need the fear to experience courage. You need struggle to experience strength. And this thing has been handed upon us whether we like it or not. Use it. Be worthy of your struggle. Be worthy of your suffering. This is the time to bring out the highest nobility of man, woman, of human beings. We're seeing people, basketball players, giving out salaries to pay the hourly wages of people who work in the stadiums. We're seeing great and many noble acts, medical professionals who are working tirelessly in service of our human family. And the nobility of human beings is brought out, its highest level is brought out in times of great adversity. It's like they say, no greater love than he who sheds his blood for me. I'm not saying you got to shed your blood for somebody, but the point is that when you sacrifice at that level, that's the greatest love. This is an opportunity to express love at its highest level. I always like to say that fear is not the enemy of love as it's often framed. Fear is an expression of love. When we use it, fear can be an expression of love. Use this time to train your mind, to train your spirit, and of course your body, but the body is the least of it. This is an opportunity to train the mind, train the spirit, to be worthy of our suffering. Take care. Sending you lots of love. Stay strong. Think about this every single day. How will you be worthy? How can you express an act of kindness today? Maybe you can pay your babysitter even though they're not coming in. Maybe you can pay your maid even though you're not coming in. Maybe when you go to the grocery store, you can leave some stuff for somebody else. That would be nice. Maybe you can just shoot a text over to somebody who's struggling. Let them know you're not alone. Get on a video call with people you love. These are times to rise above, to transcend our suffering. And self-transcendence is everything. This is, like I always like to say, suffering is a training ground for self-transcendence. And it is. Suffering is a training ground to transcend the self. And now that it's been handed upon us, let's use it to transcend. And self-transcendence, as Viktor Frankl also said, that self-actualization is a side effect of self-transcendence. So if you look at self-actualization as the highest of human needs, self-transcendence is how we get there. In the times of greatest darkness, we can see the greatest light. I talk about that in Experience of War. I mentioned Viktor Frankl concentration camp, even in a very visceral way. When I spent 7 days in pitch darkness, isolation, and silence, I saw lights like you wouldn't believe. The brightest light I've ever seen in my life, was when I was in a pitch dark room. 5 days into the darkness retreat, I saw blinding white light. Blinding. I was literally touching my eyelids like this because I couldn't tell if they were open or closed anymore. And the light was so blinding, I felt like I needed an eye mask just to cover my eyes. Blinding white light. The brightest light I've ever seen. And the other light shows that I saw in the darkness were deeply profound. The greatest light we will see is in the times of darkness. And if collectively, again, some of us aren't really going through much struggle, some of us are, but collectively as one human family, we're seeing an unprecedented event in human history that, like, it's unprecedented. We haven't seen it before. And so collectively, there is a time of struggle, and from everything I understand, it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. So in times of darkness, just remember, that is the time that we can see the greatest light. So, will you be worthy if you're suffering? Much love to you, my friend, and suffer well.